Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. He was one of the brightest and most distinguished generals of the late Qing dynasty, who, with his iron will and courage, helped the Qing Empire reclaim vast territories. He was also an elder who had weathered many storms, experiencing numerous ups and downs in life. This man was Zuo Zongtang. This general, who spent his life in service to the country, married 17-year-old Zhang Yi when he was 71 years old. On their wedding night, the gentle side of the old general left a deep and lasting impression on the young girl, one that she would remember for life. According to historical records, Zuo Zongtang was born on November 10, 1812, and showed remarkable intelligence from a young age. His neighbors praised his exceptional memory. By the age of 5 or 6, he could recite classical texts and speak fluently. Young Zuo Zongtang harbored idealistic dreams of passing the imperial examination to become a pillar of the state and a leader in governing the country. The first time he entered the examination hall in Changsha, he was confident and thought the questions were easy, feeling assured of his success. However, despite participating in the exams 3 times, he failed each time. This series of setbacks deeply affected him and made him realize that perhaps his future did not lie in the scholar's desk. Thus, he shifted his focus and began studying practical knowledge such as military strategy, economics, and geography. He often rode a donkey, traveling over mountains and across regions to observe the people's hardships and gain experience. He developed a strong interest in maps and geographical records, dedicating himself to studying river distributions and the topography of the land. To enrich his knowledge, he read extensively, immersing himself in ancient geographical and historical texts. His peers, on the one hand, lamented his failure to succeed in the imperial examinations. But on the other hand, they were moved by his persistence and determination. After all, in that era, many people would have given up if they failed the exams. But Zuo Zongtang swam against the current, actively seeking his own path. When the Taiping army attacked Changsha, the governor of Hunan urgently needed capable assistance. By this time, Zuo Zongtang had already earned a good reputation locally due to his years of effort and was recommended as a military advisor. As he entered the military and political fields, Zuo faced complex situations and displayed boldness and wisdom. He worked day and night to devise practical strategies. From mobilizing supplies to organizing defenses, taking a hands-on approach, even personally leading battles on the front lines. His efforts ultimately succeeded in defending Changsha, saving it from crisis and allowing Zuo Zongtang's name to emerge in the imperial court. He gradually gained more responsibility and continued to display his military talent in subsequent battles, suppressing the remnants of the Taiping army and quelling rebellions in the southwest. Each battle was carefully planned, and his actions were thoughtful and decisive. However, Zuo Zongtang's most renowned achievement was his campaign in the later years of his life to reclaim Xinjiang. At this time, Zuo was already over 60, frail and frequently ill from years of warfare. But he still threw himself into the campaign with near self-destructive determination. Stationed in Shaanxi and Gansu, he commanded the Northwest Army and successfully repelled foreign enemies. During the process of reclaiming Xinjiang, he pushed forward political and economic reforms, gradually integrating Xinjiang with the rest of China. Today, we can still see the Zhuogong willows that are scattered across Xinjiang, which have become a symbol of his legacy. However, behind his glorious career, Zuo Zongtang's family life remained remarkably low-key. He married Zhou Yuan in his early years, and the two supported each other, weathering countless hardships together. Zhou Yuan was gentle and virtuous, though she was frail and often ill. After her death, Zuo Zongtang was deeply mournful. It is worth mentioning that Zuo Zongtang's achievement in reclaiming Xinjiang won widespread praise. He triumphed on the battlefield and returned home, with praise pouring in from both the court and the people. Even Empress Dowager Cixi regarded this accomplished figure with special favor. However, behind this nationwide celebration, an awkward situation quietly unfolded, the marriage personally granted by Empress Dowager Cixi. The bride, Zhang He, was just a 17-year-old girl from an official family. Her father was a governor in Xi'an, and she had received strict family education from a young age. Zhang He was young, intelligent, and beautiful. When Empress Dowager Cixi's imperial edict arrived at the Zhang family, her previously peaceful life was suddenly shattered. This was a reward arranged for Zuo Zongtang after the Empress Dowager's careful selection. With the intent of expressing her appreciation for his services through this marriage. As a close maid to the Empress Dowager, Zhang He was already familiar with the intrigues of the imperial court. When she was young, her father sent her into the palace, hoping she could use her talents and beauty to win the emperor's favor and become a concubine. Unfortunately, reality did not go as expected. Zhang He did not fulfill her hopes and was instead selected by Empress Dowager Cixi to stay by her side and serve her. When Zuo Zongtang was informed of this marriage, he felt a mix of emotions. At over 70 years old, he had experienced many ups and downs in life and had already seen through the struggles for power and fame. The Empress Dowager's intentions were not merely to reward him, she clearly had deeper considerations. Zuo Zongtang held a powerful military command in the northwest, and by arranging a marriage with one of her personal maids, Empress Dowager Cixi undoubtedly intended for Zhang He to be her spy, monitoring whether Zuo Zongtang harbored any rebellious thoughts. Although Zuo Zongtang felt that this marriage was not of his own choosing, he had no choice but to accept it. Refusing the Empress Dowager's marriage would undoubtedly be seen as defiance and could lead to greater suspicions. On the other hand, Zhang He felt conflicted when she learned that she had been married off to a general well into his old age. At just 17, she had never experienced the feeling of love. Her identity had changed so quickly, from a young lady of a governor's family to a palace maid. And now to a wife of a general. She had no time to think it through before she was on her way to the general's household. Soon, as night fell, the red lanterns of the Zuo household were hung high, lighting up the courtyard in a festive atmosphere. However, the mood inside the bridal chamber was completely different. The 17-year-old bride, Zhang He, sat alone in the room, clutching a silk handkerchief. Her expression sorrowful. Outside, the laughter and cheer of the guests echoed, but inside her heart, she could only feel a deep, indescribable sorrow. She had never imagined that her marriage would unfold in this way. From being the daughter of a governor in Xi'an to serving in the palace as a maid. From fantasizing about becoming a concubine to being married off to a man well past 70. Her life seemed to have been arranged by others. Marrying an elderly general, Zhang He could only think of what her future would hold. Tears silently slid down her face, soaking the corner of her handkerchief. Suddenly, footsteps sounded outside the door, followed by a soft knock. She hurriedly wiped her tears away. The person who entered was Zuo Zongtang, dressed in a brand new red ceremonial robe, walking with a slightly slow pace. He looked at the young girl in front of him, her figure petite. "I am late, my apologies for making you wait," Zuo Zongtang said, his voice deep and gentle. Zhang He, upon hearing his voice, immediately stood up and saluted. "I greet you, my lord." Though her movement was respectful, the slight tremor in her body still betrayed her inner unease. Zuo Zongtang gazed at her, slowly raised his hand to gesture for her to not stand on ceremony, and softly said, "No need for such formality, tonight, I only ask that you listen to my words." He did not rush to sit but instead stood by her side, calmly watching her. His next words caused Zhang He's tears to well up once again. "I know you do not wish for this marriage," Zuo Zongtang said in a calm tone. "The Empress Dowager has arranged it, and it is not something I can refuse." Zhang He froze, looking up at him. Zuo Zongtang sighed lightly and continued, I am already past 70, and marrying you as a concubine was never my intention. From now on, you will live peacefully in this household. If one day, you meet a suitable person, I will personally find a good match for you and see you married. These words left Zhang He completely stunned, her tears flowing uncontrollably. It seemed as though she was touched, and also that a heavy burden in her heart had finally been lifted. Seeing her, unable to speak for crying, Zuo Zongtang said no more. He turned and walked to the table, placing a cup of warm wine there before saying, the food is prepared. If you wish to eat, please do. Do not mind me. He then stood up, holding the back of his chair, and walked toward the door. As the door slowly closed, Zhang He watched his back, and that night, she could not sleep. Time flew by, and it was now 1885. In the Zuo family mansion in Fuzhou, Zuo Zongtang lay bedridden, surrounded by his family and loyal servants. He had been unable to rise for a long time, his health steadily declining, but his mind remained sharp. In the final stages of his life, Zuo Zongtang began to settle his unfinished affairs. His life seemed illustrious, yet many of his wishes had not been fulfilled, the territories had been regained. But the border defenses had not been solidified, his family had been reunited, but he had not been able to spend much time with them. By this time, Zhang He had been with him for many years. From the tear-filled young girl she had been back then, to the now calm and capable woman she had become. Her transformation brought Zuo Zongtang a sense of comfort. Though he had never treated Zhang He as his wife or concubine, he had always regarded her as part of his family. Zhang He not only took meticulous care of his daily needs but even when he was gravely ill, she personally brewed medicine, organized documents, and worked tirelessly on household matters. Her thoughtful care filled Zuo Zongtang with gratitude. And he increasingly felt indebted to her. One morning, Zuo Zongtang called his eldest son to his bedside. His tone was no longer authoritative but carried a touch of earnestness. Throughout my life, I have acted with a clear conscience. But towards Zhang He, I always feel guilt. I hope that you and your brothers will find her a good marriage, so she can leave this household and live a life of her own. The eldest son nodded in agreement. Father, don't worry, I will make sure your wish is fulfilled. A look of comfort flashed across Zuo Zongtang's eyes, but he added, not only should you find her a good husband, but the dowry must not be overlooked. Although she is not my biological daughter, she is dearer than a daughter to me. I want her wedding to be grand, so others do not look down on her. After discussing Zhang He's future, Zuo Zongtang seemed to feel much lighter. He leaned back on his pillow, gazing through the window at the swaying tree shadows. A few days later, this renowned late Qing general passed away peacefully. After his death, the family, according to his will, sent Zhang He back to Xi'an, preparing a generous dowry for her. When she donned her wedding gown, her heart was filled with mixed emotions, hard to express. She was grateful for the thorough arrangements Zuo Zongtang had made for her, and she deeply missed the elder who had always cared for her throughout his life. Later, Zhang He married a man from a scholarly family. Her life after marriage was peaceful and happy. Her husband was attentive, and they lived harmoniously, lifting their cups in mutual respect. However, no matter how stable her life became, Zuo Zongtang's shadow could never be erased from Zhang He's memory. Whenever she thought of those days, she often sighed at his kindness and generosity. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone and see you in the next time.